welcome everyone to this town hall sponsored by the Great Falls Citizens Association. This is the first of 3 that we're having this year on transportation issues. I'm Bill Canis, I'm president of GFCA. This organization has been the voice of Great Falls residents with local, state, and sometimes federal officials for more than 52 years. And with about 1,000 members, this all-volunteer organization deals with land use issues, schools, the environment, our local parks, and of course, tonight and always, transportation issues. We welcome all Great Falls residents to join our committees, where most of the major work is done, by the way. All of those meetings, dates and times and ways to connect to them are listed on our website at gfca.org, and we encourage participation by the widest cross-section of our residents. Tonight we are going to discuss community issues and the impact of 1- and 2-lane bridges, specifically the 1-lane bridge that currently exists on Springvale Road. Excuse me. Our supervisor, John Foust, asked for residents' input, broad input on the types of bridges that might replace that bridge. And so we put together this meeting for that purpose. We've publicized this meeting quite widely. Both the Connection and the Sun Gazette had major stories, including information on how to attend the meeting. Inside Nova Magazine, which is an internet publication, had a full report on it. Our February newsletter was a special one just on transportation, and it covered that, so all 1,000 GFCA members would have received that in their emails. We did an e-blast also just a week ago to all of our members with the details and a reminder. And we reached out to 40 homeowner associations in Great Falls where we had a contact and asked the presidents of those HOAs to disseminate this information to their members. We did not go door to door, but I think we did just about everything else we could have to publicize this event tonight. We are very delighted that Supervisor Foust is joining us. He and his staff are always open to hearing Great Falls residents' concerns about county and state policies that affect this community. Just a little bit of background before I introduce Supervisor Foust. He was elected to the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors in 2007 and has been impressively reelected 3 times, most recently in 2019. He represents the Dranesville district, which includes Great Falls, McLean, Herndon, and he is chairman of the Board of Supervisors Housing Committee and its Economic Advisory Commission, as well as many other things, but too numerous to describe tonight. Before turning over the floor to Supervisor Foust, I'd like to just relate one instance where, one of many, by the way, where we have worked closely with him and his office over the years. In 2009, VDOT engineers had decided that the newly reconfigured Route 7 intersection at the western terminus of Georgetown Pike should have 2 turn lanes onto Georgetown Pike. That concept would have dumped thousands of vehicles a day from 2 lanes into 1 lane of Georgetown Pike, right at the busy Seneca Road intersection. We saw that that idea would create a huge traffic nightmare almost daily. John Foust also saw the problem with that 2 left turn lane solution, and he led a bipartisan group of supervisors who to vote against it. The Board of Supervisors voted, I believe, 9-1 against that double turn lane. And that ensured that we have 1 turn lane that is there today instead of VDOT's original proposal to have 2. And now we have a much more orderly merging of traffic without the chaos that would have occurred had the original VDOT plan been put in place. So In introducing Supervisor Foust, we want to thank him again for his perseverance in working to represent the interests of the residents of Great Falls. Tonight's discussion about the Springvale Road Bridge is equally vital to the future of this community. And with that, I turn to our supervisor, John Foust. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for that great introduction. The rest of the story is, it ended up with a 9-1 vote. But you may not recall, but I certainly do, that my first motion to eliminate the dual left turn lane, right after I got elected, the vote was 1-9. And I learned a whole lot about being a member of the Board of Supervisors, and the GFCA stepped up and we went around and actually met with the chairman and others. Actually, I guess you call it log rolling or something like that. We did something right, because the next time, and this was sometime later, we were able to get a 9-1 vote. So that was a great team effort, and it was, as you say, one of many. I really enjoy working with the GFCA, and particularly on an issue like the one we have in front of us now. I tell GFCA, MCA, homeowner associations, I think I got my finger on the pulse of the community pretty good, but there's 130,000 people in the Dranesville district. There's, just so many different issues, and organizations like GFCA, that the outreach that Bill just mentioned, that would not be possible for me to conduct that type of outreach on every issue out of my office. So it's so meaningful what you do. And that brings me to where I'm at on this issue, which is, I think it's a very local issue. I am prepared to support whatever position the residents of Great Falls take on the issue. We've had good luck. We got the single lane bridge approved previously, but that was under a different set of rules and different set of circumstances. The process will be difficult if the decision is single lane. My board I will have to convince my board to support it, and then that's going to be the easy part compared to we'll have to go to Richmond, and VDOT will have to ultimately support it. But the first thing we need to do is determine, and I have a pretty good sense of where it's headed, but this type of meeting is what was required to lock it in. We have to determine what is our position, and once we do that, then we got to just become advocates for that position. And if it is a single lane, I would say that the only chance we have is the efforts that have been made in the past by the GFCA to get Georgetown Pike treated as a special type of historic byway, as a there are Virginia legislative directions to VDOT to do everything VDOT can do to protect Georgetown Pike and to preserve its history. So, we'll get into stuff like that. But first, let's hear the discussion, make sure we know what our position is, and then we'll work together to make sure that we get a good hearing for that position. So I'm looking forward to the hearing from the community.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your laying out that procedure that might follow here too. Excuse me. Before I turn to Scott Knight, who's going to take the next step in the program, I did want to acknowledge that our state senator, excuse me, for the 31st district, Barbara Favola, is on, and I want to thank her for joining us this evening. She's, I think, down in Richmond, where
I am in
the
Richmond.
General Assembly is still busy away, so thank you for
Busy.
squeezing in some time for us up here in Great Falls tonight, Senator. Thank you for
Thank you,
joining
Bill.
us.
It's nice to see all of you. It's always nice to connect to the people I'm representing. We're working very hard and at a feverish pace, and I'm hoping Fairfax will be happy with the budget that we passed. So we're doing good work, I think, and I'm certainly going to be supportive of whatever position you come up with regarding the bridge. And looking forward to hearing from you. I know VDOT, you've got some VDOT reps on the line, right? Steve Welch
Yes.
and others. And I see Jane Edmondson, who I'm always talking to in John's office, and of course Supervisor Foust. And I can see you all, Scott and Gary and John, from the committee. So I won't take any more of your time. Go ahead and get started.
Thank you. I think you'll learn a lot about some of our local issues by this night. It'll be a good use of your time. Thank you.
Sure.
And I just wanted to also mention that our delegate for the 34th district, Kathleen Murphy, said she would also try to join us this evening. So anyway, we appreciate all the support from our elected officials
Sure.
across the Commonwealth here. Thank you. And
Sure.
now I wanted to turn to our co-chair of our Transportation Committee, Scott Knight, who will take our program forward another notch. Thank you.
Well, good evening. Just want to say thank you to all of you for attending tonight. Thank you, Senator Favola and Supervisor Foust. Thank you, representatives from VDOT. I see Mr. Runco, Mr. Battelle, Mr. Welch, and Mr. Sinclair that you're on. Also, Mr. Biziadny from Fairfax County Department of Transportation. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And thank you to everyone in the community for coming to share your perspective on this. GFCA and the Transportation Committee, we strive to make Great Falls a safer community and to preserve the character of the community. GFCA is working to preserve the character of Great Falls by preserving its one-lane bridges like those on Lay Mill Road, Beach Mill Road, Walker Road, and most important, this bridge on Springvale. We work to try to resolve the traffic issues at choke points like the Old Dominion Georgetown Pike intersection and to make the historic center of Great Falls safer. The one-lane bridge on Springvale serves as a gateway into Great Falls and also serves as a to limit the amount of traffic into Great Falls. Just one thing to point out, with tolls making the daily commute between the Dulles Tech corridor and points east costing $9.50 per day, that amounts to almost $2,000 per year in after-tax money to drive on what should be the primary route between the Dulles Tech corridor and places in Maryland and inside and those accessible by the Beltway. And I truly hope that the Airports Authority gets the cost for the Silver Line under control and that we find other sources of funding for the Silver Line, because I think what's happening is that this bridge is becoming a favored alternate route due to those tolls. Hopefully we can find a win-win solution here. And again, thank you all for coming tonight. And I'd like to introduce John Hollisey, who's been leading our Springvale Bridge Working Group, and he's done extensive research on this topic. Thank you, Mr. Hollisey. And can you share with us an overview of what you've learned regarding the bridge at Springvale?
Right, I'd be happy to, Scott. Thank you. Hi, I'm John Halsey. I'm the coordinator of the GFCA Springvale Bridge Working Group. Our group includes numerous GFCA members and some of the residents who live along Springvale near the current one-lane bridge. I live a little further up Springvale. I'm across from the St. Catherine of Siena School and Church in the Fox Run community. I'd like to thank the representatives of VDOT, Supervisor Foust, and Senator Favola for being here tonight. I appreciate your participation. This is an important issue to us, and your participation is greatly appreciated. Many of us feel that Great Falls is under attack. The Route 7 widening project is expected to continue through 2024, creating delays, disruptions, and detours at our Great Falls and Route 7 interchanges. Tonight's topic, the proposed Springvale Bridge replacement, has sparked strong reaction, but I'd like to ask all participants who speak and ask questions tonight, remember that it's okay to disagree with the positions of VDOT. Should I pause there? And God forbid the GFCA. But just remember that the reason that we are here tonight is our shared concern for the future of Great Falls. I have to confess that when I first heard about the proposed replacement of the bridge, my reaction was probably what many of you thought. Great, that's progress. Fortunately, the GFCA has years of experience in examining the various transportation and transportation issues impacting Great Falls. And as Bill Canis noted in his opening remarks, not all progress is beneficial to Great Falls. The GFCA's primary mission has always been to protect the best interests of the Great Falls community and the historic Georgetown Pike, whether our positions are popular or unpopular. That's why our Springvale Bridge Working Group was formed, to determine the potential changes a new bridge would bring. Our working group met with VDOT representatives in October and were told that the Springvale Bridge is deteriorating rapidly. Replacement is needed soon, even before replacing the Walker Road Bridge that was approved back in 2006 for replacement with a 2-lane bridge. VDOT representatives told us at that time that the new Springvale Bridge would also be a 2-lane bridge, either with or without a center median. Surprisingly, the flooding that closes the bridge during the heavy rainstorms would not be fixed by a new bridge, since either design would only be a few inches higher than the existing bridge. Once the bridge replacement is scheduled and funded, they estimated the replacement construction would close the bridge for approximately 6 months. The foreseeable problems of a 2-lane option were obvious to the working group. Increased traffic, higher speeds, and larger trucks would now be able to use the new bridge with higher weight limits of a 2-lane bridge. Increased traffic would be attracted to Springvale in order to get to Georgetown Pike, adding to our growing problem of 495 commuters cutting through Great Falls to avoid tolls and the Route 7 construction. Our neighbors who live along Springvale near the bridge would have an even more difficult time getting out of their driveways safely, since there would be no single-lane bridge to slow traffic. Many longtime residents of Great Falls have also expressed fears that the loss of our 1-lane bridge will contribute to unwanted changes in our semi-rural atmosphere. Why wasn't a 1-lane bridge an option? The Springvale Road Bridge handles too many vehicles according to a VDOT policy of only 400 daily cars allowed for a single-lane bridge replacement. They explained that the single-lane bridge exception would be an uphill battle and considered only if Supervisor Foust could get the Board of Supervisors to send a request for a single-lane bridge replacement to Richmond. VDOT's chief engineer would then evaluate the request and decide if a single-lane bridge exemption would be considered. An uphill battle, definitely. I'm not sure why a bridge replacement policy that somebody at VDOT wrote down in a manual carries more weight in this decision than the residents of Great Falls. If we say a 2-lane bridge on Springvale is wrong, we don't want it. We don't want Great Falls to attract ever-increasing traffic and safety problems. If that's our consensus, why is somebody in Richmond determining what's best for Great Falls? The GFCA felt that we needed to hear from other Great Falls residents, not just GFCA members, in order to make sure that residents living closest to Springvale were aware of the proposed change and its potential problems. We conducted a survey of homes in the neighborhoods along Springvale between Crippen's Court and Georgetown Pike. Almost 2/3 of the respondents were in favor of a single-lane bridge option. The project aims to improve safety. These are the words found on VDOT's website describing the objective of the Springvale Bridge Replacement Project. It's understandable if VDOT wants to build a bridge to handle more traffic. It's what they do. They build bigger and wider and more traffic. Their objective may be stated as improved safety, but the real agenda here is moving more traffic through Great Falls. The long downhill straightaway from Crippen Court to the bridge, followed rapidly by a steep hill that veers to the left and leads to the limited sight lines of brevity, will cause accidents. Vehicles traveling at higher speeds will contribute to drivers losing control of their vehicles at the hill. Consider that there are V-ditches for drainage on either side, and the potential for deadly accidents seems inevitable. Other speakers will address additional safety concerns tonight, but like the Route 7 left-hand turn lane proposal that Bill Canis spoke of in the opening, The GFC and the Springvale Bridge Working Group firmly believe that this two-lane bridge proposal is another bad idea. Thank you. I am now going to introduce Gary Runco, who may have a different opinion. From VDOT, of course, I'm sorry.
I don't necessarily have a different opinion, but I'll explain that as we go through this. Thank you. For those that don't know, I'm the Nova District Structure and Bridge Engineer, and I lead our efforts to manage 2,200 bridges and culverts and more than 15,000 ancillary structures. Those would be luminaires and high mast light poles and traffic signal poles and sign structures. And I got to tell you that on a day-to-day basis, we're pretty darn busy. But this is actually an important project for us, and that's why I'm dedicating my time to it. And I want to point out a few things. I had sent to you, John, ahead of time what I wanted to cover this evening. I don't know if that went out to the participants or not, or if I just need to go over it. You're on mute.
Sorry, I believe that either someone from your office or Jennifer and Peter have that slide. You wanted to show the slide of the different meetings and such, right?
We can put that up if we, yeah, so we can pull that up, or I can just run through it quickly. I'm happy to just keep going through things and talk things through this evening. So I may or may not use the slides. So real quickly, I want to point out that, we initially spoke with the GFCA in May of 2020 about what we were planning to do. And then we had a follow-up meeting that I spoke with the Transportation Committee, September 14th of 20. And then we did a presentation for local residents on 10/13 of 20. We did the at-large public meeting on 10/21. I took a separate telephone call with Bill Canis on November 2nd. We again met with the GFCA Transportation Committee on November the 11th. We did a separate briefing for Father Pekorski at St. Catherine of Siena Church on 11/30. We did a briefing for Lexington Estates HOA on 12/9. And we're now participating in this town hall meeting, and we have more meetings that are planned. We know we're planning a spring public information meeting in May, and we'll do additional outreach as needed. And the point I wanted to make by noting all of those meetings, and that's 9 that we're having, counting this one this evening, and we intend to have more, is that we're certainly not operating in a vacuum. We're trying to be as transparent as we can possibly be in terms of our dealings with the community on this. So I want everyone to understand that. I had a second note here that I had written that was contrary to certain comments. We're not rushing to a decision. So this started when we spoke with you in May of last year. We knew we were headed in this direction. We're not rushing to a decision. We have shored up the bridge. It's not in good shape. It's in very bad shape, but we've shored it up with timbers. We have knee braces and we put in some additional beams, and that's great. They're going to hold up for some period of time. We're comfortable with that. However, if there's a big storm and some big logs happen to come downstream and knock our timbers out, then the bridge could be in trouble. And so we'll have to readjust should something like that happen. We can't predict what Mother Nature is going to do. We get damage all the time to our structures based on Mother Nature. We're in the process right now of replacing the Joplin Road Bridge down at Quantico. That the floodwaters were so great, they were 2 feet over top of the bridge and it tilted the pier. And so we realized that the bridge was unstable and we're replacing it right now. It's a $2 million fix that we weren't planning for, but it's what we have to do to keep things safe. We'll do the same thing at Springvale if in fact there happens to be an event that Mother Nature causes and creates a problem for us. But if that doesn't happen, the timbers should hold up fairly well. We're comfortable with that and we think that they'll be okay, and we're inspecting the bridge on a regular basis. If it would become unsafe, we'll just close it. That doesn't mean we're going to rush to an immediate decision. We're still going to work with you, the community, and the residents to try and get to a satisfactory solution. Okay, we're not rushing this process. Again, contrary to some of the comments that have been made and things that are suggested, I like to point out we're your engineers. You pay for us indirectly through your gas taxes at the pump. Okay, and we work for you. It's important for you to understand that we work for you. We're not trying to do something that's secretive or behind your back. We work for you. It's like going to your doctor and saying, hey, I think I have a problem. Can you help me to fix it? So now there's a bridge problem and we're trying to help you to fix it. That's what we do. Okay. And I think that's important for everyone to understand. Okay. And so this is not an us versus you situation. We're in this together, trying to make the best decisions. Okay. So that was another point I wanted to make. We need to hear what you're saying. You need to hear what we're saying. When we tell you that we can keep the bridge open, and with that, unless there's a flooding condition, you have to understand that we can keep the bridge open unless there's something that interferes with that. Same thing is true with what we're telling you in terms of following regulations and policies and physics and budgetary constraints. Those are the things that we have to deal with that you're not necessarily looking at. You don't know what our budgets are. You don't know where the funds come from exactly. You don't know what all the policies are. So when we say to you, here's the policy, here's the law, here's what we have to do, as your experts, you have to listen to us. Now, if you want to go get a second opinion, you can, just like you do with your doctor, but you do need to hear what we're saying. So when I hear things like we're concerned about heavier trucks going over the bridge, I can say to you, we have to comply with federal law, and federal law dictates what those loads are going to be, coupled with state laws. So we have to design it for those types of loads. There's not an option there. You won't find a bridge engineer in the United States who's willing to say, I'm going to violate federal law and design a bridge for lesser loads. Okay, we have to comply with federal law on this. It's not regulation, it's law. Okay, Congress passed laws as to the weight limits. So I can tell you right now, one of the things that we're actually very busy on is actually analyzing all of our bridges, because the federal government required us by law to analyze for special hauling vehicles and emergency vehicles, and to post the bridges as needed and to strengthen them as needed. So we are in the process, we've been in the process now for 2 years, and it's continuing to analyze all of our bridges and structures for these special loads that the federal government passed laws on. So we're stuck with that. So that was the one thing, or a couple of things that I wanted to stress. Then I also wanted to say that, you know, we've been collecting data and we want to get your feedback. So we do have some feedback on the summary of written positions to date. And so far we've received in writing 26 responses related to what the community wants. We'd love to have more responses, but we have 26. 12 of them favor the 2-lane bridge and 14 favor the 1-lane bridge. It's almost a 50-50 split. Okay, so, slight advantage to the 1-lane bridge by one person. Basically, if that one person flipped over, it'd be a tie. So that's what we have so far and what's been submitted. And I know you've done your surveys, and we'll certainly look at that. And we're going to continue to look at reaching out to the community to get information. The other thing that was interesting to me is that we also asked the question of, did you want the bridge to have the median/splitter island if it was the 2-lane bridge? And we got 9 that favored that and 8 that opposed it. And again, that's almost a 50-50 split, but that was 17 votes. And so some of the people apparently that were voting for the 1-lane bridge also had an opinion about whether or not we should have a median or splitter island if it was a 2-lane bridge. So again, we'll look at that and see what makes sense. But we also documented the issues and concerns that were documented in writing so far. And what I've got is, and I'm going to read through them. Increased traffic, we had 11 comments on that, and that's important. I think we're all recognizing that. Cut through traffic, we had 4 comments on that. Speeding/traffic calming, we had 9 comments on that. Access onto Springvale from the side streets and driveways, we had 6 comments on that. We had 5 comments related to crashes. Those first 5 comments, I'm going to point out, are all traffic related. Okay, now I'm going to go on through the rest of them. Flooding, we only have 1 concern for flooding, 2 for keeping the rural nature, 3 for environmental concerns, 4 for the weight limit, 3 for maintenance of the existing structure, I believe, 4 for median concerns, and 4 for the Route 7 construction. So I want to go back and I want to say, the bridge is not the issue. The issue is traffic. Okay, if we build a 2-lane bridge, but came up with solutions that were traffic calming solutions, stop signs at the Springvale Brevity intersection, a speed table or speed humps on Springvale Road. We can probably sit around and think of other potential solutions, and we may be able to do some and some we may not be able to do. But if in fact we could solve the traffic issues, the bridge isn't the issue. It's all traffic. Now, there's some consensus maybe that bridge certainly does help to support the traffic issues. It functions as a speed table or speed hump. It slows things down. It makes people stop. But it's really not what you really want. You really don't want the bridge to do that. You really want traffic calming measures to do that. And I think that's actually important. And I think that's something that everybody should be talking about. Okay, what traffic calming measures would actually work? What would actually help to solve the traffic issues? Okay, now as far as some of the other issues goes, and I can talk about it a lot during the Q&A. Flooding, we can raise the bridge. When we tried to do that, I think it was back in 2003, the bridge ends up being 300 feet long and comes up in the air 10 feet, and we can pass all the water under the bridge. The community didn't want that. So that design was put into the round foul that's the trash can. Here we are back to, square one, trying to say, okay, what is it that we actually want? How do we want to do this? And the problem with the flooding is that the roadway on the approach to the bridge is actually a little bit lower than the bridge itself. So the roadway floods before the bridge does. We can pick the bridge up, and if we're going to do the whole project, that's why the other project became 300 feet long. It fixed the whole roadway. It became a really big project. The fact that some of the other comments, rural nature, environment, were actually so lightly cited, really leads us to believe that the issue isn't all those other little sidebar things. It's really the traffic issue. Okay, now from the standpoint of bridge engineering, we're required to design for current weight limits per federal law. We actually are designing our bridges now using stainless steel reinforcing in the concrete decks. We're using corrosion resistant steel in our abutments. We're using high performance concrete and using all those newer materials that are the best of the best materials that we know of today. And that's Virginia's commitment. We know that the bridges are going to last 75 to 100 years. So that's one of the other concerns that I think we have, is that this bridge will be there for 75 to 100 years. What should it look like in 75 to 100 years? What will Great Falls look like in 75 to 100 years? The future projected ADT is 6,000. So we've actually, again, we've been very transparent. We've told you what you need to do in order to get a one-lane bridge in place. And the number that's in the manual is 400. That manual aligns with, I looked up New York states, and New York says 350, and then they look 30 years out and the number goes to 500. I don't think that the number was put into the manual by VDOT, and I've not checked this, but I don't think it was put in there arbitrarily. I think it follows some guidelines and probably is aligned with what all the other states in the nation are doing probably. People aren't just building one-lane bridges because they want to. There's got to be some criteria. And so I think our criteria probably matches up. So I think that the 400 number is probably a good number. I've actually talked with the state bridge engineer. So it doesn't get approved by the chief engineer in Richmond. It gets approved by the state bridge engineer. And it's because the requirement is in the structures design manual. And the state bridge engineers initially said to me, why don't we just build a one-lane bridge? And I said, because the ADT is 4,700 and it's projected to be 6,000. And his reply back was, whoa, that's a lot of traffic. I see where you're coming from. I'm not sure that he will overrule the 400 because it sets precedent. It may be contrary to what all other states are doing. There may be some basis for that. I think that criteria was put into effect in 2017. I haven't gone back to check before 2017, but I know the page was updated in 2017. So I think this is new criteria that has occurred since Beach Mill was put in place. I think when Beach Mill was done, the traffic back then was something more like 1,600. So I think it was significantly less than the 4,700. I don't know what the state bridge engineer will do. What I do know is that I cannot approve it. We cannot approve it at the district level. If you'd want to go that route and you still feel strongly that that's the direction you want to head, then John laid it out very well at the beginning when he said that, he knows that he would have to go to the Board of Supervisors, create the argument, get an endorsement from Fairfax County, and send that through to Richmond and have it assessed and determined by the state bridge engineer. Okay, and again, keep in mind that if in fact there's precedent for setting the numbers at where they are, then again, the state bridge engineer might be reluctant to not want to approve it and not roll the 400 criteria. Or he may say that, if it was 2,000, I would do it, but I'm not going to do it for 4,700. I don't know. Or for a projected ADT of 6,000. I can't speak for him. Okay, I can just tell you what the policy is and what you have to do. And that's what I said back in the beginning. You have to rely on us as your engineers to say, what do we do? Okay, tell us what the policy is, tell us what we can do. And I think we've done that. So I think, again, I want to make it very clear that we at VDOT have been as transparent as we can possibly be. Okay, and we're open to hearing what the community wants. Now, I'm not locked in on a 2-lane bridge or a 1-lane bridge. Okay, I'm locked in on getting you a new bridge. Okay, and I think that's the important aspect of this. I want you to be able to drive over a bridge safely. From the standpoint too of weight limits, I wanted to point out that we're looking at emergency vehicles that are these big fire trucks that are actually the largest vehicles that'll drive on our road system. I don't know that you're going to need any in Great Falls, but if you needed one, you'd sure like for it to be able to get there. Okay, as opposed to having a weight limit that restricts that fire truck. So, and Fairfax County does own one of those big fire trucks. So I think that you need to make sure that you're careful about what you wish for in terms of how things work. We've said this with other communities, we've had communities ask us in the past, can you make the bridge be posted at 15 tons? Or, we don't really want it to go any higher than that, or 10 tons. And we have to point out that the issue is school buses and fire trucks and concrete trucks and delivery trucks and moving trucks. All of those things weigh more than those lower load limits, and you really don't want to be restricted. So it's important to make sure that you get what you want and what you should have. Okay, you should have a bridge that's fully serviceable. So I think that I wanted to make those points. I'm open completely to questions and answers. And again, we've been hearing you. We can point out along the way. You mentioned some things. The 6-month time frame for construction. We've looked at doing construction by building a temporary bridge and doing a temporary runaround. We're looking at that as an alternative. It'll cost us more money, but it's certainly an alternative that we're willing to consider. You've asked for us to not do Walker Road and Springvale at the same time. We're looking at that. We're going to try our very best to make sure that that doesn't happen. You've asked that we postpone both projects until Route 7 is completed, and we're looking at doing that. And we've talked about traffic. We've actually engaged a consultant to study all the traffic aspects. You're going to see in the next week traffic counters going up on the road. You may see people actually counting turning movements at Brevity and Springvale, because we have asked for detailed information so that we can actually make good assessments. And I think that's the key. You don't want to make judgments and determinations without proper information. I think that's where you run into problems and run into trouble. We try, our very best to not do that. We try to gather all the information that we need to be able to make good decisions. And so that's what we're doing. So you've asked for that. We agree, and we're spending the money to go ahead and get that information so that we'll have traffic data to share with you. So again, with that, I'm willing to open up this conversation to questions and answers, or hand it back to you, John. And it's your meeting, and we'll respond as as appropriate.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Gary. This is Jennifer Falcone, Chair of the Land Use and Zoning Committee. And I wanted to let everyone know that in a few minutes, we're going to open up the poll. We have a very brief poll for our Great Falls residents to answer 2 questions. We are keeping track of the ongoing Q&A that's popping up so that our panelists can see those questions, and we will start to answer those and incorporate those in during the next half an hour while we have some presentations. But right now, I wanted to recognize Julie Benachur, who's going to make a brief statement, and we're going to share a photo and open those polls. So attendees, please feel free to answer those questions during the presentations as we go on. And then at the end of the meeting this evening, once we get the votes tallied in, we will share the results of that poll. So thank you very much, Gary, and go ahead, Julie, you can unmute yourself and start to speak. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Oh, sorry.
Yes, yes. No, now we cannot.
Go ahead, Julie.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. All right, my name is Julie Benachur, and as I said, we'd really like to thank you so much for all your concern about our one-lane bridge issue. I live on Springvale Court, which joins up with Springvale Road between Route 7 and the bridge. And the concern here is that a two-lane bridge on Springvale Road would incite increased speed and traffic volume. Now, be it cars or large trucks, our neighborhood would have to contend with this extra traffic volume and speed as we enter Springvale Road from Springvale Court and vice versa. And at this point, it becomes a safety issue. It is felt the construction of a two-lane bridge could present added danger to our neighborhood. Now, increased volume and speed, well, volume, for example, the attractive choice for Route 7 traffic, Washington, D.C. and Maryland bound, to take Springvale Road and the Georgetown Pike as a cut-through to access 495 Beltway and the George Washington Parkway, rather than negotiate all the Route 7 traffic, the toll road, and then the backed up traffic on 495, would be a very tempting and compelling choice indeed, but would result in extra traffic volume on Springvale Road and the historic Georgetown Pike. So that is the issue. A cut through would increase volume. Now, the speed aspect, traffic, once having left Route 7, is already moving at a fast clip. And we feel encouraged by having a free pass to go full steam ahead over a nice big two-lane bridge with no constraints, encourages speed. Our one-lane bridge, it is felt, is a traffic calming measure. Now, I might add at this point, we as drivers all stop at red lights and slow down when traffic is heavy anywhere. So slowing down or stopping at a one-lane bridge is really no different. Now, one more point for this. At present, our turn off from Springvale Road onto Springvale Court, coming from the bridge, takes place at the brow or crest of a hill, which requires us to pay special attention to oncoming traffic as we cross in front of the oncoming traffic lane to turn and enter into our neighborhood. The same issues are present as we try to leave our neighborhood heading towards Route 7. So head-on collisions from Route 7 traffic could become more of a possibility with speed increases and higher traffic volume. Now, you might ask, where is this traffic coming from? Well, the traffic will be coming, it'll become an almost continuous flow from the right-hand turning lane on Route 7 onto Springvale Road with no restraints. Then there will be the Barron Cameron flow of traffic crossing Route 7, heading straight up Springvale Road, followed by traffic bound for Tyson's Corner, turning left from Route 7 to Springvale Road. In other words, it's like channeling the waters of a mighty river to gush into a tranquil stream, and so much would be destroyed. That picture that you saw 2 seconds ago, I took a photo of coming up Springvale Road. VDOT's mission is to build big, fast, flowing spaces for traffic to move quickly. And they do it admirably. Nobody can say the contrary. However, polls have shown that Great Falls does not wish to become part of that fast flowing highway. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. Our next speaker is going to be Carl Pearson. Is Carl online? Okay. Okay, I believe that's the poll coming up. All right, since Carl doesn't appear to be online at the moment, can we just go to Bill Canis, who is going to speak about VDOT, some inconsistencies and some modeling.
Sure. Thank you. So I had thank you, Gary, for your comments. It's always been a pleasure to speak with you. As you know, Great Falls is surrounded by the VDOT embrace. So we have Route 7 under construction. Several of our major roads to the south have been closed for a year, such as Riva Ridge for construction purposes. To the east, there's a proposal for the hot lanes, which is at our, where Georgetown Pike crosses the Beltway. There are the proposals that you have for closing and revamping these 2 bridges. There is no holistic approach to this. Each one of these apparently is seen by VDOT as piecemeal, regardless of its impact on Great Falls. But my question to you, or comment really, is this, that we participate in all of these debates because all of them affect Great Falls. And we hear some blatant inconsistencies. So at some of those meetings you enumerated that you had with us, we asked you to give us a forecast of what the traffic would be after a 2-lane bridge. I remember distinctly you said such forecasts really have no merit, and that VDOT would not do such a forecast. We also asked about whether a 2-lane bridge would increase traffic. And I recall your answer saying, well, we really have no way to know that. Now, let me fast forward to a meeting last fall on the hot lanes with Abraham Lerner, who was one of your chief engineers. At that meeting with Mr. Lerner, he provided detailed forecasts of what would the traffic patterns be if the hot lanes were extended. Detailed. He also said, in response to a question I asked him, when you increase capacity, what's the impact on traffic? And he said, oh, that's easy. Anytime you increase the capacity of a roadway, you're going to attract more traffic. These were not the responses, Gary, that you gave us. Mr. Lerner's responses seemed to be credible, and they were a basis on which we could work with VDOT. Your responses were not credible and were not transparent in the sense that you were willing to work with us on those key issues. And now there's one more inconsistency I'd like to put on the table. I received in the mail a flyer from VDOT, which many people got, about the next lanes, the hot lanes. I want to read to everyone, and I hope that Mr. Foust and Senator Favola are listening. The second bullet on why people should support the 495 lanes. Reduce cut-through traffic on local roads in McLean and Great Falls. Increasing safety, and here's the part that's a VDOT quote. I hope you'll remember this, everyone on the call. And returning the local roads to local residents. That was never mentioned. That has never been discussed with us. And in fact, the VDOT position as we see it, and as you will hear further tonight, is one of saying you have to take a 2-lane bridge. A 1-lane bridge was never even mentioned as an option. Over on Hunter Mill, when that bridge was discussed, you provided them with a 1-lane option at the beginning. So I have to say a little bit that we don't see a lot of willingness in reality, in real terms, for VDOT to want to work with Great Falls Citizens Association. And I want to come back to that quote, returning the local roads to local residents. Your proposal is to turn the local roads over to Maryland residents cutting through this community. That's my comment.
If it's okay, I'd like to address that to some extent.
Gary, could you possibly just, hold your response to that? Because I'm sure that other people were going to ask some questions about that in the Q&A. So could we do that? Because we have a number of speakers to get to, and we wanted to go back to Carl. I think Carl is actually available now to speak. So if we could go to him and you could hold your response just for the Q&A session, and then we'll address it there, okay?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'll do that.
Thank you very much, Gary. Okay, Carl, are you ready?
Sure. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm Carl Pearson, and this is a historic perspective. I've been told to limit it to 3 minutes, so I've timed this. My wife and I have lived in Great Falls for over 32 years, and I've been on the Great Falls Citizens Association Transportation Committee since 2009. In 2006, VDOT proposed a 2-lane bridge on Lay Mill Road over Difficult Run near our home. VDOT said the old bridge was unsafe because it could not bear heavy traffic. Our White Chimney neighborhood objected to our Dranesville supervisor because that 1-lane bridge had a traffic calming effect and because it was part of the historic semi-rural nature of Great Falls. VDOT relented and replaced our old Lay Mill 1-lane bridge with a much stronger 1-lane bridge that handles fire trucks and school buses. And I believe has the same construction that Gary mentioned. Later in 2010, VDOT proposed a 2-lane bridge on Beach Mill Road over Nichols Run. When that neighborhood came to the GFCA Transportation Committee for help because their 1-lane bridge also had a traffic calming effect, I said I'd provide them the plans for the new strong 1-lane Lay Mill Road bridge. After discussions, VDOT agreed to replace the old 1-lane Beach Mill Bridge with a stronger 1-lane bridge. As I recall, Supervisor Foust, Delegate Comstock, Senator Favola all attended the new 1-lane bridge ribbon cutting ceremony. By the way, Lay Mill Road and Beach Mill Road, which was called River Road when Great Falls was called Forestville, are both older roads than Georgetown Pike. Like Supervisor Foust, I also recall the VDOT proposal at the end of 2009 for a 2-lane turn off Route 7 into a 9-lane intersection at Georgetown Pike. That would have flooded Georgetown Pike with heavy traffic. Both Supervisor Foust and Delegate Comstock were told by VDOT at that meeting that the VDOT plan could not be changed. Only 2 residents out of almost 200 agreed with the VDOT plan. In a true bipartisan effort, that VDOT plan was changed to a 1-turn lane into a 5-lane intersection. Supervisor Foust named Eric Knudsen and Joan Barnes, then co-chairs of the GFCA Transportation Committee, as Lord and Lady Fairfax for their work on that intersection. Thank you, John. Our 1-lane Lay Mill Road bridge is part of a historic semi-rural nature of Great Falls. That's one of the reasons we moved here 32 years ago. That 1-lane bridge has been a major traffic calming factor for our neighborhood. I believe 2-lane bridges will encourage speeders that will lead to traffic accidents, especially for nearby residents who must enter already busy roads like Springvale and Walker. By the way, just a footnote, that positive decision at Route 7 and Georgetown Pike led to the formation of the Route 7 Working Group headed by Eric Knudsen, which worked with VDOT on the plans for the rest of Route 7 widening. Unfortunately, that working group plan for the busy intersection at Route 7 and Barron Cameron was scrapped. That's a historic perspective. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Carl. Appreciate that. Next up is going to be Damian McCabe to talk about the weight limit differences on the Walker and Springvale Road bridges.
Hi, thank you very much. It's Damian McCabe, and I live off Springvale in the Fox Run neighborhood. Thanks for the opportunity to be able to ask a question tonight about safety. In an earlier meeting, VDOT said that the Springvale Bridge is in worse condition than the Walker Road Bridge and needs to be replaced first. Can you explain why the Walker Road Bridge weight was lowered to 10 tons while the Springvale Bridge remains at 15 tons? Why wouldn't the weight limit for the bridge in poorer condition, meaning the Springvale Bridge, be lower than the one judged to be in less urgent need for replacement, meaning Walker Road? Thanks.
Sure. I'm happy to address that now. John, do you want me to take that on now?
If you can do it quickly, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I can. So both bridges get inspected on a regular basis. What we did at Springvale was we shored the bridge up, as I mentioned, with timbers. We actually changed the loading pattern on the Springvale Bridge with the timbers that we did. We put in knee braces coming off of both abutments, reduced the span length, changed the loading patterns, and we also put in timber beams in between the beams. And we think that what we did, we've analyzed it completely, that we've actually made it capable of carrying 15 tons. Since we did that at Springvale, Walker Road has continued to deteriorate. The most recent inspection found the beams at Walker Road to be in very bad condition. So things change. And what you have to understand is that deterioration happens. It's going to continue to happen no matter what we do. So it's a function always of how bridges actually deteriorate. And I always try to tell people this, that it's hard to know exactly that the actual chemical makeup of the steel, the weather that the bridge actually sees, how much salt water it actually sees, because we salt our roads like crazy, and salt water, it really tears up our bridges. It's one of the things that I complain about. But it's a function of how that all happens. And there's no easy way to predict one structure versus another. Just had this exact conversation with our central office yesterday. So had to do actually with deterioration of the ceiling panels in Roslyn Tunnel. But we can't predict corrosion rates, deterioration rates. We just can observe them. I hope that helps and answered the question.
All right. Thank you, Gary. All right. The next question is the next topic is from John Milks. And I don't have a topic down here for him. Is John Milks online tonight?
He is. His video is not shared yet. John, you're on mute. Is it possible to unmute John's mic? There you go.
You hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I think the real thing is that as long as the choice is go through Route 7 and go through Tyson's Corner or come over to Georgetown Pike, people are going to come over to Georgetown Pike. And if they can't turn off 193 off of Route 7, they're going to keep going down and going off all the other roads. They're driving now by the Dranesville Elementary School. They're going to go down Springvale. They're going to go down Walker. So by all having a one-lane bridge, you're not minimizing the amount of traffic. All you're doing is making people have to wait and just adding pollution and making, guys get a little bit upset because they have to wait. But I don't think going from a one lane to a two lane is going to add more traffic. I agree they'll be faster, and that's something that they have to work on. But people aren't going to, if they have to wait 5 minutes across Springvale, they'll do that and go all the way to Tyson's Corner and fight through all that. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, John. Next up is Dennis Huber, and he wants to talk about speeding vehicles on Springvale Road. Dennis, are you available? Is Dennis online?
Oh, I guess I need to unmute myself. Sorry, I thought that was going to happen.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Sure. My name's Dennis Huber, and my wife and I have lived here at 1130 Springvale Road for 29 years. And we are at the bottom of the valley, right next to the bridge, on a little 5-house pipe stem on the west side of Springvale Road. Springvale crosses Piney Run at the bottom of that valley. Springvale Road, like all secondary roads in Great Falls, has a speed limit of 35 miles an hour. And as Julie mentioned earlier, Barron Cameron has a speed limit of 45, and Route 7 is 55 miles an hour. So when people turn onto or come across Route 7 to get to Springvale Road, they're thinking higher speeds. We were hoping to have a week's worth of traffic counts and actual speed information for this meeting, but the weather's not cooperated with our ability to capture that information. After crossing the Piney Run Bridge traveling northbound, traffic on Springvale Road climbs a steep hill and turns west to the top, making it a blind curve, which you would think would slow people down. However, we haven't seen that. Watching traffic fly by from the side road, the people up at Brevity Drive at Lexington Estates see it all too often, with people making the top of the hill and then realizing they've got a hard turn to make and having trouble staying on the road there. Very difficult for the Brevity Drive folks at Lexington Estates to get on. The current one-lane bridge is a traffic calmer. However, there's no traffic. If there's no traffic at the bridge, then the northbound traffic accelerates down the hill from Route 7, crosses the bridge at 45 to 55 miles an hour or more. It flies down there if there's no traffic calming. If there is traffic calming, most people stop and wait their turn. And, there's always a discussion about whether 1 or 2 cars should go across the bridge at one time, but it makes it much easier for those of us near the bridge to get on Springvale Road because of that traffic calming. And we're in a good enough position so we can see up and down the hill to see if anybody's coming right now. But if there is traffic at the bottom of the hill and it's stopped, it's easy for us to get out onto the road. Southbound traffic accelerates as it rounds the bend at the top of the hill by Brevity Drive. And if there's no traffic at the bridge, it crosses the bridge at 55 miles an hour or faster. It comes down that hill and hits the bridge at a high rate of speed. And that's a one-lane bridge. It makes it very dangerous for people entering Springvale Road near the bridge from Brevity Drive to Springvale Court, even with a one-lane bridge in place. A one-lane bridge provides that traffic calming capability, and if safety is a critical concern, then it should remain a one-lane bridge to slow traffic down in either direction. And one final thought, we've talked a little bit about weight limits and the 15-ton signs. If the idea is to keep the existing one-lane bridge for as long as possible, those weight limit signs should be moved up to much closer to Route 7 and much closer to Georgetown Pike, so that the big trucks that would otherwise cross that bridge have an opportunity to do something about it. Otherwise, they'll just run across the bridge anyway because they can't back up and go somewhere else. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Next, we're going to go to Karen Washburn, and she wants to provide some historical background on Georgetown Pike. Is Karen available?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
I have lived in Great Falls since 1976, and I have been through lots of these things of different road constructions and whatnot. I have been on the Great Falls Citizens Association committees off and on all those years. I have also worked on the traffic committee back when this bridge first came up, which was mentioned at being 10 feet higher than this proposed is today. I truly believe from all of my observations of living here all these years, when it was once a farming community and is no longer, that adding a second lane to this bridge will do nothing to benefit the residents of the community. It will only bring on cut-through commuter traffic access to Georgetown Pike. And this cut-through traffic will be passing through a totally residential neighborhood. Where else in Fairfax County would we engineer cut through traffic through a residential neighborhood. Getting to Georgetown Pike. Georgetown Pike, as most of you know, is a Virginia Scenic Byway and is registered on the Virginia Landmarks Register and the National Register of Historic Places, which means, back to our VDOT engineer's original observation, traffic is the issue, but it also means that because of these registrations, Georgetown Pike cannot be widened. It cannot be altered to make traffic pass through any faster. And right now it is carrying much more traffic than it was ever designed for or ever anticipated would hit that road. So if we add a second lane to this bridge and dump even more commuter traffic onto the Georgetown Pike, we are going to cause a huge hardship for the residents along Georgetown Pike. The reason being, in addition to the excessive speed that cut-through traffic will do on Springvale Road, as we just heard about, when we get to Georgetown Pike, after they zip down Springvale Road, it's going to be backed up. There will be large delays. Every single household in this community that lives on the north side of Georgetown Pike is dependent on Georgetown Pike. They have no choice but to use that road when they leave home. They either go up it, down it, or across it. What this does, by adding all this extra traffic, causes huge safety concerns. Because Georgetown Pike has no shoulders in many areas because of the land and the terrain, and there are very limited pull-off areas, during peak hours, it's impossible for emergency equipment, such as fire trucks and ambulances, to pass through in the speed that they need to move. They're forced to sit in heavy traffic while a fire burns out of control, or somebody suffering a life-threatening illness gets worse and worse and worse, or perhaps dies because the emergency help can't come. And I'm not exaggerating, this does happen. So we don't need anything to attract additional commuter traffic onto the historic road or through the neighborhoods. We're already, as a community, suffering, a residential community, suffering from a huge amount of commuter traffic. And this was addressed in Senate document number 47, which was ratified by the General Assembly when it was introduced in the early 2000s by our then Senator Janet Howell and our then delegate Vince Callahan. It also is addressed, the Senate document number 47 has rules and guidelines for how Georgetown Pike should be treated. And the Fairfax County Comprehensive Plan, as of 2018, also says, the Fairfax County Comprehensive Plan, for the Upper Potomac District says the following regarding Georgetown Pike. We need alternative routes for the traffic. It should be out on the other roads. It enumerates the other roads. It says, and I quote, planning efforts should focus on other means of dealing with traffic volume in order to maintain this byway. Again, alternative routes. The county assumes that VDOT and other agencies dealing with the county will follow to the extent possible the policies outlined in the comprehensive plan. So Fairfax County's comprehensive plan, Senate document number 47, the whole 9 yards, indicate we should not attract additional traffic to Georgetown Pike. And I truly believe, from my experience of living here all these years, a 2-lane bridge would attract much more traffic, especially in that location of a straight shot across Reston into Springvale Road. It will just create a bigger nightmare of traffic down Georgetown Pike. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, we're now going to go to Jennifer and Peter Falcone, who are going to speak on the issue of accidents along Springvale Road and along the bridge area.
Hi, thank you very much. We're going to share a couple of slides here in a second. And the issue of the Springvale Road Bridge first came to the Land Use and Zoning Committee's attention when a commercial development was proposed for the Meadows Farms property at Route 7 and Springvale Road. At that time, GFCA heard neighbors' concerns that this large commercial project will introduce a high level of traffic congestion and environmental impact on this part of Great Falls. We also learned from the developer that they would be eager to work with VDOT to expand the one-lane bridge to facilitate customer access and alleviate traffic volume at the entrance to their project. The outgrowth of that initial process was GFCA's discovery that in fact VDOT had been making plans to replace the current bridge. This was in May of 2019. I'm sorry, March of 2019. VDOT was making plans to replace the bridge, and one of the neighbors provided documentation that from VDOT that they were intending to conduct test borings as a preliminary step in engineering a new bridge. The time frame was late spring 2020. In VDOT's October 2020 public presentation, they mentioned that the safety and accident risks associated with the current one-lane bridge on one of their slides. They presented data for 19 years from 2000 to 2019, and that there were 41 accidents reported. That data was from for the length of Springvale Road between Brevity and 1/10 of a mile north of Crippen Court. Their accident comparison information and the data that has been presented infers that the accident rate is somehow attributable to the one-lane bridge. When GFCA was first presented with this, we took exception and suggested that driver behavior and other factors were more likely to have contributed to the accident rate. We dug in a little deeper and looked at the public information and found that there are important details to be considered in analyzing the accident rate in this context. While I'm neither an accident investigation specialist nor a statistician, I can offer that the data we have does not lay fault at the threshold of the one-lane bridge. The following slides show the public data taken from the VDOT crash analysis tool, which was developed in-house by VDOT's Traffic Engineering Division, Highway Safety Section for crash analysis purpose. The main source of this data is owned and maintained by the Department of Motor Vehicles. The slides show that there were 18 accidents reported between 2013 and the last date entered in 2020. The first 3 accidents you can see in the lower section occurred on Springvale Road within the intersection of Crippen Court and Springvale Court, well outside the area of the bridge. Moving north, the next accident was reported as a rear ender on a wet road by a young driver aged 15 to 21. The next accident on the south side of was on the south side of the bridge in a southbound direction, which involves a senior driver in an angled crash with another vehicle. You can see that there is an arrow in it that points to the bridge. The next accident involves a senior northbound beyond the bridge. Staying on the north side of the bridge, the next accident occurs in the southbound direction at the Pipestone, involving a large truck operated by a distracted driver. We next see a cluster of accidents in the curve of Springvale Road where it turns westward. These 3 separate incidents are on the curve, resulting in vehicles leaving the roadway colliding with a utility pole with conditions such as wet, dark, misty, senior, and involved distracted and drowsy drivers. One of those distracted drivers was a truck driver on a wet road on the curve of Springvale Road. An additional northbound driver left the roadway, struck a tree, and speed was listed as a factor. Another accident pointed to an animal as a factor in the roadway. 5 of the 8 accidents located in the curve are designated as northbound, occurring beyond the bridge. The three final accidents were located within the intersection of Springvale Road and Brevity. And this intersection is not even visible from the bridge. Since the data does not point to the bridge as a factor and suggests there are many other unrelated contributing factors, I think it is fair to say that this should not be cited as a basis for building a 2-lane bridge, or that this represents an inordinate number of accidents. Area residents are convinced that the bridge causes drivers to slow down and that it is a beneficial effect on traffic safety. It serves to meter the flow of traffic and throttles that flow to ensure that this stretch of roadway is not a speedway. I believe that the proposed 2-lane bridge design would encourage higher rates of speed and no doubt more frequent and serious motor vehicle accidents. And at this time, I will turn it over to Don Bouchot, who will also speak about a personal experience of an accident on Springvale Road. Thank you. And Don, are you there? I see that if Don is now a panelist, if you could unmute and go ahead.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Don Bouchot. I'm a 33-year resident of Great Falls. To amplify what Jennifer just went over, about 15 years ago, my then teenage son was involved in an accident on southbound Springvale, exactly at the curve that Jennifer pointed out, which was the heaviest concentration of accidents. Teenage boy heading south, driving a little too fast, just after a thunderstorm, hit his brakes to slow down. His car swerved into the northbound lane and hit a car that was heading northbound that had already crossed the bridge. There was a minor injury in the other car, but the point is that in the initial statistics that were given by VDOT, this was one of the accidents that was listed as being, in essence, caused by having a waiting cars at a 2-lane bridge. I'm sorry, a 1-lane bridge, and in fact, it isn't. The curve, the climbing curve, descending curve on Springvale is a far more dangerous thing than any number of waiting cars just trying to get on the bridge. And that's it. Thank you.
Next up, we have Candy Burt. Go ahead, Candy.
I'm here. Do we have the 2 slides? Hello? Can you hear me? Perfect. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, my name is Candace Burt, and I live on Beach Mill Road in Great Falls. And what you are looking on screen is the inaugural day that we cut the ribbon for the opening of the Nichols Run Bridge that is on Beach Mill Road. I spearheaded that effort in 2011 as an effort to keep Nichols Run Bridge that crosses Beach Mill a 1-lane bridge. You're probably wondering why many Great Falls residents wanted to keep a 1-lane bridge. Let me tell you why. It's a traffic calming measure. Just like the Springvale Bridge that is 1 lane, it does and will continue to slow down the traffic if it is 1 lane. The roads in Great Falls, as we all know, are narrow with blind hills and blind turns. And without the 1-lane bridge to help slow down, I fear to think what it would be like. Believe me, I sat for hours, and I mean many hours, watching the traffic on Beach Mill Road when it was suggested by VDOT that the bridge was going to be replaced with 2-lane bridge. Oh my, that would have been a recipe for disaster. Drivers do yield to oncoming traffic. Maybe they're not happy doing that, but they do. They follow the rules of the road. In fact, I have seen many drivers give a big thank you wave for stopping and letting them cross. The traffic has increased over the past 10 years on Beach Mill Road, and every time I cross the one-lane bridge, I thank Supervisor Foust and VDOT for listening to the voices in Great Falls and supporting our efforts to keep Nichols Run Bridge one lane. I can say since I've lived at my current residence by the Nichols Run Bridge for 45 years, we have never, and I want to repeat that again, never had a crash on that one-lane bridge. But that wonderful one-lane bridge has certainly saved a lot of injuries that probably would have occurred had it not been one lane. To let you know how proud I am of the Nichols Run Bridge, and I thought I was going to be online, but I'm not. But I have a piece in my hand of the special ribbon that we cut. As you can see in the picture, I saved it. It is a reminder of how much the citizens of Great Falls are willing to protect their community and to keep it safe for all that live here and for those that pass through a little piece of heaven known as Great Falls. To Supervisor Foust and VDOT, please think long and hard about replacing the one-lane bridge on Springvale Road. I urge you to keep it one lane as a traffic calming measure. Safety should always be the #1 priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Candy. One of our speakers notified me that he was unable to attend this evening and that he would forward his remarks both to Supervisor Foust and to VDOT directly by email. And we will make sure that he has the appropriate contact information. And next, I am going to go to Henry Lippincott and make sure that he can open his mic and that he's ready to go. So Henry, go ahead. Thank you.
Share my screen. So I'm born and raised in Great Falls, and oftentimes drove over the one-lane bridge, the Betty Cook one-lane bridge growing up, now a part-time resident. Like many of you, when I first learned of the replacement for 2 lanes, I thought that it was an excellent idea, remarking to myself, it's about time. Not until I researched the issue further did I conclude that it's in our best interest to maintain a one-lane bridge on Springvale Road. To perhaps respond to Gary Runco's insulting suggestion that we were here today with uninformed opinions, I took it upon myself to research this very topic in other communities. I spoke with local residents from the communities surrounding these 5 bridges. Sunset Bridge, Beach Bridge in North Carolina, Musconetcong River Bridge in New Jersey, Church Lane Bridge in Trexelton, Pennsylvania, Larcombe Road Bridge in Scioto, Ohio, and Chernisky Road Bridge in Connecticut. In 3 of these cases, the one-lane bridges were upgraded to 2-lane bridges. In one case, the bridge was rebuilt as a one-lane bridge, and in the final case, the outcome has yet to be decided. What's noteworthy is the consistency of feedback I received from people I spoke with. The 2-lane bridges have resulted in increased through traffic, higher speeds, unlawful truck traffic, a loss of community character, and an overall deterioration in quality of life. In one of the cases in which the one-lane bridge was rebuilt, it served as a traffic calming mechanism, discouraging through traffic to the newly built shopping mall on the other side of the bridge. So let's take a look at 2 of these cases in an episode I like to call Let's Learn from Others' Mistakes. So in one of these 2 cases, let's look at Sunset Beach Bridge in North Carolina. At the time that this one-lane bridge existed, many complained that the wait times were quite inconvenient. But despite this inconvenience, the residents preferred the one-lane bridge. On the left, you see the one-lane bridge, and on the right, you now see the 2-lane bridge, which has replaced it, which took place about 10 years ago. So let's look at the impact that this new 2-lane bridge has had. Well, some feedback from neighbors on the one-lane bridge. One notes a lot of people would probably go to Ocean Drive, Cherry Grove, or Ocean Isle Beach because they were scared of being stranded on our beach by the bridge. So clearly the one-lane bridge served as a traffic calming mechanism. Another community noted the importance of the bridge to the community's character. I was and am an advocate of the old bridge, and I love what it stood for. It was a very quaint piece of our town, and just by its very nature, it separated us from the rest of the world. Now, feedback that we've gotten in response to the new two-lane bridge includes this quote: "The nonstop flow of traffic has crowded and congested this quiet community." And some have mentioned their concerns for safety. "I still love Sunset Beach, but I do not feel safe on the island." Moving to our second case study, New Hampton Road Bridge in New Jersey. This was a one-lane bridge which was converted into a two-lane bridge. One individual I spoke with, you can see that visually they don't look too different, but one woman I spoke to noted that speeding has become an issue across the bridge, noting traffic does speed across this new bridge now. She also noted that thanks to a tonnage limit, they were able to restrict the number of trucks from crossing the bridge. But she then lamented by stating, "The bridge is protected when traffic is heavy, but not monitored all the time, which is why the heavy septic tank truck was able to cross and break this bridge 2 years ago." Unlawful truck traffic is a trend that that was mentioned in all of my discussions with these individuals. So looking at the other bridges, Larcombe Road Bridge, in speaking with Sonia Hefner, she noted that just a few years ago, a speeding accident occurred at the other side of the bridge. At the Church Lane Bridge, which was rebuilt as a one-lane bridge, Dennis Hinkle noted that it continues to contribute to the character of the community and discourages cut-through traffic to the local mall. Importantly, one of the most consistent pieces of feedback I received from the individuals I spoke with was the misleading or disingenuity of the Department of Transportation individuals they spoke with. Adrian Oricio, in particular, noted that her DOT engineers told her that they were restricted by AASHTO guidelines, which ironically is something that Gary Runco told us, which isn't exactly true. This includes the misleading and sometimes sarcastic statements that he's made, despite presenting us with the results of a 17-person survey, which is statistically invalid because of the small sample size. And so I'd like to conclude my remarks by repeating the rhetorical question that Gary Runco presented to us earlier. What will Great Falls look like in 75 years? Well, given that Georgetown Pike cannot be expanded anymore and has no more capacity for traffic, given that there is no expectation of meaningful population growth in Great Falls and hence additional local traffic, what is going to change around us? Well, it's the suburban sprawl on the east and west of us, and the expectation that the expanded Route 7 is woefully insufficient to manage the additional traffic expected as a result of this suburban sprawl. Therefore, we must do what we can to minimize the impacts of these developments that are taking place outside of our community on Great Falls. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. I appreciate it. Before I go to the next speaker, I wanted to just do one little bit of housekeeping. If you do have a question that you want to ask, rather than putting your hand up using that function, if we could go to the Q&A option and write out your question for Q&A, and then we'll just add that to the Q&A session later on, okay? So next up should be Sarah Kirk. I don't know exactly what she's speaking about, but Sarah, are you available?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. Well, I do appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm a longtime resident of Great Falls. I think we're up to 33 years now. We were on Corabon Lane, and when the Beach Mill Bridge was being redone, I had a bunch of teenage boys driving up and down all the time. And they remarked how it was harder not to speed going through that area. The bridge helped them. I did have one boy who had a terrible accident on the other end of Riverbend Road. Unfortunately, he was fine, but anything we can do to slow down traffic is awesome. I now live at Turner Farm. We are the curators here at the Turner Farmhouse at the intersection of Georgetown Pike and Springvale Road. We have horses, and we are still rural a little bit here in Great Falls, and we appreciate the ability to have our horses pastured right on our roads. So our pasture is on Georgetown Pike right now. We're right at the intersection of Georgetown Road and Springvale, and more traffic would not be good. It is tempting on Springvale Road. There's a long stretch that's quite straight to go fast, and people often tailgate me when I'm going down that road. I'm also a parishioner at St. Catherine's Church, which is right down the road there amidst all those turns. And I have seen people coming around the road too fast and going off the road. It's not a good idea to make a 2-lane bridge there. I'm fine with waiting for people. I've been stopped by the cops when I tried to do the 2 at a time thing. And they said, you know, that study that they did where you can go really 2 at a time and it's still fine. It's not fine. And I thanked the officer and he let me go because I was a Great Falls resident and we were trying to do what we thought was right to help the situation. So a lot of history here in Great Falls. I hope that everyone will continue to listen to each other and to listen especially to all the voices here in Great Falls. We really do want to keep this. I'm breeding ponies. I want the little babies to be fine. So please keep it just 1 lane. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up is Matthew McKnight. Not sure his topic, but Matthew, are you available? Matthew McKnight? No. Okay, well, let's skip ahead to Gary Pan, and Gary wants to talk about cut-through traffic. Is Gary online? Okay, let's go ahead to Eleanor Anderson, who will speak about traffic calming.
Gary's coming up.
Gary's coming up? Okay, all right,
Yes.
Go ahead, Gary.
Sorry about that. I had to get access to the session. Thank you very much for having me here. And I've been a resident of Great Falls for over 20 years. I live on the other side of Lay Mill Road, the bridge from Carl. I'm on the north side, closer to Georgetown Pike. And my family, we moved here because of the semi-rural character of Great Falls. And we think it's very important. I have 3 boys that grew up here. And I'll tell you what, a while ago, as Carl was talking about, there was consideration of making the Lay Mill Bridge 2 lanes. And I was very concerned about that because my boys were learning to drive, and I was very concerned about the safety associated with it along this road. And so I'm grateful that we did not widen it. When the toll road came in, since I live on the top of Lay Mill, you know, I'm often sitting there as I try to get onto Georgetown Pike. And so I watch traffic go by, and I can observe personally that there's been a dramatic increase in regards to traffic going from along Georgetown Pike. When the toll road prices went up, it even jumped up even further. Okay, and we're starting to see a lot of cut through traffic onto Lay Mill. One of the things that I personally experience, I'm very concerned when I come out of my pipe stem because there's a lot of people who speed along Lay Mill Road, and it's very concerning. When in 2019, I was driving eastbound towards the village on Georgetown Pike, and lo and behold, someone came into my lane, and we almost had a head-on collision, but for the fact that I almost went into the gully on the north side of Georgetown Pike. We sheared our side view mirrors, the driver's side mirrors, and I immediately turned around at Rossmore and chased down the other car. And when I came upon them, I just asked them what's going on, and are you okay? And they said, we are coming from Sterling and we want to go to Maryland, and we were trying to avoid the toll road. They just basically told me that. So this is a big concern. In regards to the widening of the Springvale Bridge, that's an issue in regards to potentially widening the artery access to Great Falls, which is in turn going to create capacity, which is going to be filled. This is a big concern. We've been recently talking about the American Legion Bridge and the hot lanes, and there's been a lot of very concerned citizens about this. While we're not at the same scale as that, the American Legion Bridge, we have all the same type of concerns in regards to the impact to our community. We've been talking about the planning. I've requested more information in regards to the traffic projections. I'm still waiting for that type of information for a lot of the traffic situations in the community. But you know what? One of the things that I'm concerned about is that we deal with traffic in a very segmented way. It's not looked at holistically or at a comprehensive level. So while we may think about it just in this little microcosm, there's so many different moving parts. Is it really practical to understand what's going to happen? I'm not sure. I don't think that you can guarantee that type of situation. So I'm concerned about this from many different levels. I'm concerned about it from the semi-rural nature of our community. I'm concerned about the traffic that it's going to be increased in regards to cut through. But from my personal experience, I'm going to share. I am very concerned about the safety of our local citizens, and I hope that the Board of Supervisors and the Commonwealth really considers what they're doing going forward, and listens to our community and our concerns. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. I see that Eleanor Anderson is now available. Eleanor, do you want to speak on traffic calming as well? Eleanor, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. I sent out a comment in chat. Did everybody see that?
No.
I sent a comment on chat, which was, I am absolutely amazed that a VDOT representative would have said, well, we can consider things like speed humps, speed rumble strips. It's really a speed question that we have here. It's not the bridge, it's the speed. I will tell you, as Karen Washburn will tell you, when we did the traffic calming study, Karen and I and John were part of the Great Falls community that were part of that. And we talked to VDOT about traffic calming. And we said, what can we do? What can we do to stop the speeding on Georgetown Pike? This is back in the late 1990s. And we were told we cannot have pavers. We can't have pavers at the intersection of Georgetown Pike and Walker Road to indicate that people need to cross over to get to the village center, pavers that would slow traffic. You cannot have speed bumps or humps or strips. You can't do that on Georgetown Pike. No, you can't do that. And so tonight, I guess the one thing, after all the wonderful comments that have been made by everybody, all I can say is, having been part of working on traffic calming, because I was president of GFCA when the first bridge replacement came up. All I can say is I'm astounded that anyone from VDOT would say, well, it's not the bridge that's the problem. It's It's really the problem after the bridge or before the bridge. And so maybe we can think about speed humps or speed bumps or speed strips or whatever. And all I can say is that's just amazing to me, because that has never been considered at all. And so all I can think of is I just can't trust that comment. I think you have to retain the one-lane bridge because that's all we can do. I don't trust the comment about putting in speed bumps or anything else. I wish that we could stop the traffic from going around that curve as fast as they do. I would love to have strips at least there. I would like to see VDOT help us to address the problems that are not related to that bridge. I don't trust them to do that at all. And if that's all that we have, then we have to retain the curves. We have to retain everything, the 2 lanes. We have to retain everything that we can to keep the traffic going as slowly as possible. It's been a very good meeting. I'm glad I could be part of it.
Thank you, Eleanor. Appreciate your input. Okay, did Matthew McKnight sign on, or are we still missing Matthew? I'm sorry? Okay, did Matthew McKnight sign on? Still missing you. Okay, I'm sorry. Is Matthew online?
I don't think so, John.
Okay.
We'll
All right.
come back to him if we can get him back online. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Should we start the question and answer round then, Jennifer?
Yes, I've been working with Pam Grosvenor to go through some of the Q&As that have popped up, and I am going to turn it over to Pam to ask a couple of questions, and then we will work back in Gary as we go, and I know that he has been writing things down. So maybe if Pam can share the first 1 or 2 questions with you, Gary, and then maybe you can go back to some of the answers that you graciously waited to answer until now. Thank you.
Sure, that would be fine.
Okay, hi Gary, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, this builds a little bit on Eleanor Anderson's remarks. You mentioned that the issue is not the bridge, rather the issue is how to calm traffic, and that there are a number of things that could be done. Isn't a one-lane bridge actually another way to calm traffic and discourage through traffic? Why is it more logical to widen the bridge and then install things like speed humps and stop signs?
Okay, happy to answer that, and it's a good question. There are several reasons. One, we currently have a policy that says that we have to build a 2-lane bridge because the traffic is in excess of 400. That's the first thing. The second part of that is, and again, I've mentioned this many times, we can't make that decision in the district. That decision has to be made by the county making the request to the state bridge engineer in Richmond, and he can make that decision. So I've laid out for the community what you need to do. I wish I could make the decision. I would be superseding my authority. Okay. As far as traffic calming measures, and there are differences, and I think this needs to be pointed out. You know, we've talked, there's been a little bit of discussion about Hunter Mill Road was mentioned at one point. We've talked about Springvale here. We've talked about Georgetown Pike. There's different levels of service and different criteria that can be applied for the different levels of service. So for example, on Hunter Mill Road, when we were doing that, we were not able to add traffic calming measures because it's an urban arterial. And urban arterials cannot have traffic calming measures. They're designed to make traffic flow, basically. Springvale Road is a local collector. That's different than an urban arterial. And this goes back to the Fairfax County comprehensive plans and this categorization of the roadway network within Fairfax County. And again, it presents opportunities, and Springvale is different than Georgetown Pike. And so when you were told, and this goes to what Eleanor was saying, that you couldn't do it on Georgetown Pike, that's because that road is a different level of service than Springvale Road is. I think Tom Bishodny's here tonight, and Tom Bishodny could in fact maybe address this better than I can. But if Fairfax County said to VDOT, we would like to do traffic calming measures on this local collector Springvale Road, then VDOT would entertain what Fairfax County suggests. So I think again, it's different, okay? And so the bridge is not supposed to be the traffic calming measure. If in fact there was a decision to say, put in a speed table on one of the approaches to the bridge that does the same thing that the bridge does, slows traffic down, then you would get the same result. And I think that's the important thing to consider. I think it's okay to request multiple traffic calming measures and traffic improvements on Springvale Road. I think that's well within your ability to suggest and your right to request. So if you said, we would like to see different signage and have the trees cut down for better sight distances, those are the kinds of things that can be done and that you have every right to suggest and ask to be done. So with that, I hope I answered your question, Pam.
Gary, could I ask you one quick thing? You mentioned the term speed table.
Yes.
And I'm not familiar with that phrase, and I'm sure other people may not be familiar with the phrase. What is a speed table versus like a speed hump or something?
It's actually just an elongated speed hump.
Okay, all right.
So it works a little differently than a true speed hump, but it still works. It's an elongated speed hump.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Gary, second kind of question that's come in from the people that are here on the call. The community feels that Great Falls already has a significant issue with the volume of through traffic and needs traffic calming to reduce congestion and improve safety. You've heard that earlier tonight. If the bridges are widened, what's more specifically will VDOT or can VDOT do to address cut through traffic on Georgetown Pike between I-495 and Route 7 to ensure that Great Falls remains a livable, more rural community consistent with the Fairfax County Comprehensive Plan?
Okay. Pam, another very good question. And this actually leads me back to one of the comments and the flyer that Bill held up. And the comment, returning the local roads to the local residents. That's actually a bigger transportation issue that is in fact more global. So the misunderstanding, I think, in what Bill read and how he interpreted it is the traffic planners believe that by adding more capacity to 495, people will stay on 495 and not get off onto Georgetown Pike. The same thing is true with Route 7. By making it wider and adding lanes, the belief is that people will stay on that route and not get off and run through Great Falls. Okay, so I think that the traffic planners and the concept for adding more capacity to the major roads that allow vehicles to travel at higher speeds, we all know that people want to go the fastest route that they can go. If they can travel faster on 495 and can travel faster on Route 7, they're going to take those routes and they're going to stay off of Georgetown Pike. And they're not going to cut through on Springvale Road either. And that's the concept behind building out those roads. So I think it's important that everyone understand what VDOT and Fairfax County and others are trying to do in terms of building out the routes where we want the traffic to stay. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense, but whether that actually happens is another issue. There have been a few people that have asked for a contact information email that they'd like to give you some comments and feedback on their ideas on a 1-lane versus a 2-lane bridge. Would you please provide a current email address?
Sure. So you can send it to me directly. I'd be happy to get it. But we also have this information up on our website. But my email address is easy. It's my name, Gary, Gary.Runco, RUNCO, at VDOT, VDOT.Virginia, spelled out, .gov. So if anyone wants to send me emails directly, I'll be happy to receive them. Our project manager is Dipali Patel. She's on this evening listening. Dipali's email address is again on the website, and you should really send it through to Dipali, and then she'll get it, collect everything and compile it, and so that we know what we have. And along those lines, I was going to address one of the things that Henry Lippincott said, and that, I agree that the sample set that we have is really statistically insignificant at this point. We'd like more participation. We'd like greater numbers so that we know what we're dealing with. All we have from our first meetings, and we've asked everyone to respond, send us emails, we'd like to get them, is the few that we have. Unfortunately, we just have not had a great response.
And then there's one kind of an off question, which doesn't have particularly directly to deal with the two-lane bridge issue, but the signage on the bridge says yield to oncoming traffic, and this has been a consistent problem. People don't know whether they should go two at a time, one at a time, and it's not posted. Is this something that's really more a Department of Motor Vehicles issue rather than a VDOT issue?
So the answer is interesting. There's no law that covers it. So at one point in time, a few years ago, I got a telephone call from someone in Great Falls, I think with the Great Falls Citizens Association. I'd have to look back at my emails because the police were issuing tickets for people going two at a time or more than two at a time. And they actually researched the laws and found out that there's no law that covers it. So the police had to stop actually issuing the tickets at that point in time. That was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And if the police have gone back to issuing tickets, they're doing it without actually a law that covers it. So we're looking for courtesy, common courtesy. And if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. But we as the Department of Transportation do not police it. And if there was a law covering it, we still wouldn't police it. It would be the Department of Motor Vehicles and the police who would police it.
Excuse me, Pam, this is Jennifer Falcone. I want to make a comment, and I had someone share similar information in an email about how the research came down 12 years ago or so from the state police. And yes, there's been a lot of back and forth on a lot of social media points and whether or not the police have ticketed or not ticketed. But in the most current research that I have found is that a yield sign along with a white line painted on the roadway means that the driver must stop prior to crossing the white line and yield to the cars in the opposite direction. Therefore, if the police chose to write a ticket, chances are if you were to take that ticket and dispute it in a court of law, you would lose. So I think that at this point, we may have a situation where it is difficult for the police to maintain and give tickets in that spot. So it's still up in the air as to what the actual determination is. And I think, unfortunately, the only way to find out would be based on an individual having to take that ticket to court to see if it's going to be held up or overturned. And that's the latest research that we've found. Thank you.
Okay. Jennifer, are there other people that had different views that want to remark? I think we were going to talk about that.
I think that when I'm going back and reviewing the chat here and the open question and answer, we've had most of the things covered. There are comments that about discouraging cut-through traffic. There are comments about this particular moving cut-through traffic further down the road. There are other comments about, obviously we've just had the posting, or Gary gave us his email contact. And after the meeting, we can certainly email out to everyone, Supervisor Faust's office, and so that everyone has an opportunity to comment on this. I think that we had a few people that wrote in and asked questions. One of the comments, and I apologize, I was doing some other things, but I wanted to make it clear that someone asked about whether or not the new bridge would have an effect on the flooding. And Gary, if you could go back and address that again, as my understanding is, no, it will not. So please expand on that if you have not already.
Sure. The current plan is to not address the flooding, and it's very difficult to do. When you look at what the 100-year storm produces in terms of flood waters, it requires a bridge that's very, very large. The actual length of the bridge, if I remember correctly, is approximately 300 feet, and it goes about 10 feet in the air. And if you do that, you can pass the 100-year flood under the bridge. But that has all kinds of other repercussions in terms of adjacent properties, okay, and the complete rebuild of the roadway. And it's not what we're intending to do. Currently, this bridge is about 20 feet long. It's actually just under 20 feet, so it doesn't qualify for the state's state of good repair funds. And it, as such, we're not planning to make it much bigger. We are planning to make the new bridge around 40 to 45 feet. Which we thought would be suitable for improving the bridge itself, because we can build in the new abutments in behind where the existing abutments have been. And that's actually what we want to do. We have to do deep foundations to get to competent rock. We've had issues with that bridge causing vibrations in neighboring homes. And we don't know why that occurred. It was in existence for years before it occurred, and it started to occur later. And we think that there's a potential that maybe something happened to the rock formation. So that it's just changed, and that happens. There are shifts in rock formations. So we know we need to get to deep foundations. So we want to go in behind the existing abutments where we'll put in deeper foundations. So the bridge gets a little bit longer. It will not address the flooding, and the roadway actually floods before the bridge does. So the water comes over the edges of the road before it goes over top of the bridge, and we're not planning to reach out and rebuild the roadway. So it's really a bridge project if we can do that. But again, if someone came back to us, and we've had this conversation already with in separate committee meetings with Great Falls, and I can't remember who it was. Someone said, well, we need to solve the flooding problem. And someone else on the committee said, well, watch out what you ask for, because they offered to do that years ago and we didn't want that. So again, you need to tell us if you want us to solve the flooding problem or not, but we're not hearing from the submissions that we have so far that flooding is a big issue. Okay, so if it's not a big issue, then that's not what we're trying to do.
Okay. Gary, I think Peter Falcone had a question for you as well.
I did, John. It's just a follow-up on the flooding issue. We may have raised it in earlier meetings, but now that the VDOT improvements on Route 7 are completed upstream of the Piney Run, where huge culverts, box culverts, have been installed to carry the stormwater from the south side of Route 7 under Route 7 into the Piney Run. Has that improvement been conducted with any consideration of the effect of downstream? And that was the question I posed before. I think VDOT is operating two projects here that don't seem to be talking to one another. And I understand you're not improving the flooding conditions, but you are aggravating the flooding conditions by all appearances. That's sort of a question and a statement.
Sure. Thanks, Peter. Hopefully we're not doing that. So the hydraulics people that would make the decisions on the Route 7 project are the same hydraulics staff that will make the decisions on this project. So in their evaluation, they should be taking all of that into consideration. That's what we ask them to do. That's what they're charged with doing, and they should be doing. So we've had conversations with them. We've got the flood information. The floodplain is actually managed by Fairfax County. We work with the data that Fairfax County provides to us, but then we do analyze it and look at what we're getting. So we should have, in fact, taken a look at that. And again, if there is more water that comes there, and there very well may be some, again, it's up to the community to say, do you solve the flooding problem with the bridge and raise it up, or don't solve the flooding problem? Okay, and again, to solve it, I go back to what I said before. It's probably a 300-foot long bridge that's 10 feet higher in the air.
Or perhaps there are some intermediate steps, Gary, between the large culverts upstream and the bridge. Are there any solutions that could be installed on that stream bed?
So that would not be us. If you were looking for solutions along the stream bed, that would fall to Fairfax County, because VDOT doesn't do the streams. We just do the roads. So again, you would have to reach out to Fairfax County and say, can you do something with the stream? But we don't do that. We just take the data and apply it to the design of the pipes and the bridges that go under the roads.
Gary, I'm sorry, Peter, go ahead if you had another question. Yeah.
No, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Gary, there seemed to be an inference in the talk about the 1-lane bridge versus the 2-lane bridge. It seemed like there was an inference that you couldn't safely build a 1-lane bridge that would meet the current standards for traffic. And so I wanted a little bit of a clarification on that. Is it a weight limit issue? Is there a basic weight limit that you have to get to that the 1-lane bridge couldn't get to? Okay, go ahead.
So there is a weight limit issue, but they have to separate. That's a structural issue versus the geometric design guidelines. So the AASHTO, which is the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, is the organization that puts together design guidelines. Our state, as all states, basically through legislation adopted the AASHTO guidelines as the standards. So I'm old enough now at age 66 to remember 40 years ago when AASHTO's guidelines were guidelines and not standards. But now states, having adopted them as their standard, they become law. So the AASHTO guidelines for geometric design of very low volume roads says that the ADT should be less than 400. I'm almost positive that that's where our 400 number came from, the AASHTO guidelines. Okay, so again, then they also provide the geometric design standards. So again, looking at what our state does and what other states do and what we have currently, it's kind of interesting. I think the existing width of the Springvale Bridge, and I could be wrong, don't quote me on it, I think it's 19 feet. It just barely misses being suitable to be a 2-lane bridge at like 2 11-foot lanes at 22 feet. Okay, it's not that far off. I think the guidelines for a 1-lane bridge stipulate that the width has to be 16 feet. So you could actually, if you were going to build a 1-lane bridge, you could actually get narrower if you were allowed to build a 1-lane bridge. But I think in terms of following the AASHTO guidelines and following our current state's design manual and policies, that's what says that we can't build a 1-lane bridge.
I think we've gotten to the wrap up of the evening here, and Mike Barkley, the other co-chair of the Transportation Committee, wanted to make some comments, and then we'll be looking to wrap things up here. Mike?
Hi, I'm Michael Barclay. I co-chair the GFCA Transportation Committee along with Scott Knight. This town hall meeting is the first, as Bill mentioned earlier, the first of 3 transportation-related town hall meetings that we plan to hold. And I'd like to provide you kind of a quick preview of the 2 upcoming town hall meetings. The next town hall meeting will be held in about a month, date to be determined. It's going to focus on the safety and design issues at the intersection of Route 7 and Towston Road. As many of you know, that intersection was the site of a fatal accident on December 6th that took the life of a longtime Great Falls resident. The third and final transportation-related town hall meeting, which we'll hold later in the spring, is going to focus on Georgetown Pike. The 12-mile expanse of Georgetown Pike from Route 7 to Route 123 in McLean is listed on Virginia's Register of Historic Places and was designated as Virginia's first scenic and historic byway in 1974 after a concerted effort by GFCA local historians and our elected officials. Our community surveys tell us that traffic congestion on Georgetown Pike is perhaps the most pressing concern of our residents. Closely related is the concern that overdevelopment in and around Great Falls threatens the bucolic and historic character of our community. We do have a fundamental difference with VDOT on how we view Georgetown Pike. We see the Pike as a community asset that we need to protect and to preserve from overdevelopment and overuse. As Scott mentioned earlier, Georgetown Pike, in essence, is our main street for the village center. We're always, and I'm a great admirer of traffic engineers, but from a VDOT traffic and engineering perspective, Georgetown Pike's a tantalizing east-west commuter corridor linking Route 7 with the Beltway and the GW Parkway. In fact, VDOT has in the past proposed widening Georgetown Pike to 4 lanes. In our third town hall meeting, we plan to introduce GFCA's Protect the Pike initiative, likely in conjunction with McLean Citizens Association. Among other things, this initiative will focus on traffic congestion and protection of Georgetown's Pike status as a historic and scenic byway. Tonight, we've been talking about the 1-lane bridge on Springvale Road and our interest in seeing it remain as a 1-lane bridge. A traffic engineer might argue that a 2-lane bridge is safer than a 1-lane bridge when handle more traffic. However, I believe tonight's presentations put to rest the idea that a 2-lane bridge would be safer than a 1-lane bridge at the Springvale location. In addition, in terms of protecting Georgetown Pike, as you've heard from many people, we value the 1-lane bridge precisely because it will tend to push less traffic to Georgetown Pike. But really, and this is where I divert from Gary and VDOT's perspective, more important to us, the 1-lane bridge on Springvale, like Great Falls' other 1-lane bridges, is part of the cultural character of our community. If I could presume to put on a traffic engineer's hat for a moment, I'd encourage VDOT to view our preference for a 1-lane bridge as consistent with the tenets of context-sensitive design. It's a design approach promoted by the Federal Highway Administration, where road designs are tailored to fit the environments for which they're being built. I'm going to read to you what FHA says about context-sensitive design. Context-sensitive design asks questions first about the road and purpose of the transportation project, and then equally addresses safety, mobility, and the preservation of scenic, aesthetic, historic, environmental, and other community values. Context-sensitive design involves a collaborative, interdisciplinary approach in which citizens are part of the design team. Many state transportation agencies have embraced context-sensitive design principles, and it's something we encourage VDOT to apply both at the Springvale Bridge location and along the full expanse of Georgetown Pike. I think that this would allow, perhaps we could move away from the rigidity of design manuals and AASHTO guidance. We welcome anybody that's, I'll close with saying we welcome anybody that's interested in upcoming town hall meetings to attend. As I said earlier, we're going to attend, we plan to hold the second meeting on Route 7 Towson Road intersection in late March. And we expect to hold the third and last town hall meeting on our Protect the Pike initiative later this spring. Like tonight's meeting, we'll send out plenty of emails and in advance of the meetings with instructions on registration. Thanks, thank you. And now please let me turn the meeting over to Bill Canis, President of GFCA.
Thank you, Mike. And this is the finale tonight, so I'm sure everybody's got other things they want to move on to. So I wanted to first of all thank Supervisor Foust and Jane Edmondson and Senator Favola for joining this program tonight. We greatly appreciate your interest and appreciated Supervisor Foust and Senator Favola's remarks at the beginning. I'm sure we'll be back in touch with you about this issue going forward. I'd like to thank Gary Runco from VDOT and the other VDOT and Fairfax County DOT officials who have been on this call. As you can tell, this is a critical issue for us, not just a little side matter. And it is something that dozens and dozens of volunteers have been involved with at GFCA now for many months. And I want to pay tribute to all of the people, some of whom are on this call and others who couldn't make it, who helped put all of this together. And we are a very fact-oriented, a research-oriented group. And it's one reason why we've been successful for over 52 years in the community, because we have credibility, I think, with our elected officials. In closing, I'd just like to point out that you heard tonight many reasons why the idea for a two-lane bridge will not work in Great Falls. We have not been persuaded by anything that VDOT has told us before, and we would like to see VDOT be more cooperative with us in terms of that interest going forward. A one-lane bridge is what we want to discuss. Finally, I'd like to make a comment directly to Supervisor Foust. John, you were instrumental in putting together millions of dollars to provide for the widening of Route 7. This was a major and remains a major issue and project for the Board of Supervisors. The proposal to put a two-lane bridge in at Springvale Road, we know from Abe Lerner's observation, a VDOT engineer, that increasing capacity will increase more vehicles. Putting a two-lane bridge is going to blow a hole and allow a huge amount of leakage of traffic off of Route 7 into the surrounding Great Falls neighborhoods. We know it's going to happen. It's clearly going to happen. And that is going to basically throw a wrench into the great project that the Board of Supervisors is engaged in, and to some extent undermine the investment they are making in Route 7. We don't think the Board of Supervisors should so cavalierly disregard a major leakage out of Route 7 after it's completely widened. And so I would say to you, this is something that could be a serious undermining of a long-term Board of Supervisors project. And with that, I'd like to say thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I'm sure any of you who would like to participate in this further will find the resources on the gfca.org website. And I'm sure we will be talking to Gary Runco and to the rest of you going forward as we try to find our way through this project. Thank you very much, and good night.